Opposing Gloves here, and today we're going to be talking about concept. Just wanted to see how fast it'll load up. I'm not done paying attention to loading. It loads pretty quick. So we're going to be looking at concept here. Let's just get to the initialized preset. This is just going to be an overview. It recently won a big tech award for synthesis. It won a synthesizer tech award at NAMM. So that's pretty cool. We're going to be diving into it and sort of just, I'll let you form your own opinion about it. Let me just show you some of its powers and abilities. Right, so let's hop straight to the interesting stuff. So you've got two oscillators. They're your sound generators, and you can do some weird stuff in the modulation category to anything in the synth, but I'm going to do it to the oscillators just because it'll be interesting. So you've got these like very visual tabs, and if you click on them, you get a list of modulators. And in here, you've got one called audio input. You're able to select an input and send it in to modulate stuff. Now, we've got a sidechain input, which is great in a lot of other DAWs. So what we end up having to do, now this is FL specific, is you come in, we go to an empty mixer track, we load up another instance of concept. That's how quickly it loads. So there you get a quick load times, you get to see that. We're going to set this one to default. This is going to be the one that makes our noise. Now we need a noise source. I'm going to use a kick drum, and I'm going to send it to the same track. So I'm going to go T5, and it's going to send it. But NFL, now this thing has no way of getting the MIDI to it. If I play notes, it's not going to get the MIDI unless I send it over a port. So I'm going to come into this one, go into the cog, choose input port. I'm going to choose input port 5, just sort of, I know it's an empty port. And now I need a plugin to send it to it. So I'm going to grab a MIDI send. You could actually do this with the other instance of concept, but I'm just going to use the MIDI send and tell it to send over port 5. And now it makes noise. So a little convoluted in FL, and I went a little fast, but you can set that up extremely fast once you know what you're doing. I feel like that's true of most things, but that's how you set it up. And we're going to come in here and go to audio input. And if I hit play in pattern mode, it'll send the kick, and we can see it. There it is. That's the kick drum. And we could send this to modulate stuff. So you could change the amplitude, which is useful for dialing it in if your signal is really soft. That way you get a useful modulation range. But let's go ahead and grab, I don't know, let's grab the blend and maybe the cutoff of the filter. And you can see it's just drag and drop into this little area to make it so it's modulation friendly. And you can click this flag to move it around. But, oh my goodness, I have just the dang hardest time getting these colors to do what I want them to do. So half the time I end up going to the tab that's the same color because they're color coded and moving these around. Let's go ahead and style this like way down and bring this way up. And now you see it's not enough. So we're going to dial the gain up. And this is the kick, so it's just making a nice little kick sort of a thing. And we can make it very smooth. So this will just like, you know, you got all those little variations. And if we take the smoothing off, we are able to get all those small variations. If we take the gain down some and do it on something that it's a little easier to hear. So maybe like the D tune. Maybe bring it up like 2 milliseconds of smoothing. And now if I bring the smoothing up, and if we start tossing like more stuff in here, it starts getting really sort of, it gets interesting fast. Let's put the snares on these offbeats, and then we'll fill this every 2. And I took my MIDI command off. You can lock MIDI controllers, I just choose not to. And if we come in here and like, Let's go. So it's an interesting idea. The ability to grab. You could, like, we could keep going and start to develop a sound. I've already gotten a little distracted, but very, very fun, sort of a curious way of doing things. That you could choose your sources differently, but this is all going to depend on the DAW you're in. And we also have a mode, which is, so there's also pitch mode, which will try and figure out the pitch of the incoming signal. I'm sending it drum, so it's having a hard time. But it'll try, and you'll get some very interesting modulation out. So this is really cool. And I've not even tried. Can you automate the smoothing on itself? You can. Well, that's... That's a great thing. It's a very visual synth. So you can already see the visuals, but I think this is my favorite version of the envelope. So if we look here, we get this nice red dot. That to me is the coolest iteration. It's like the most visually clear of an envelope. Now, a lot of people, you know, a lot of synths have already very visual things. Like most of them will have something like this. So we can very quickly see what stage we're at. But this is just really cool. I really enjoy just how visual that is. Now, there are other synths that have this. So let's go over all sort of the other stuff now. I think the audio input is by far the most interesting feature we sort of get. And so let's just sort of blitz through the rest of this. Oscillator here, we get two of them. They do the same things. And this is off, this is on, this is the switch. And we could choose waveforms, pick your waveforms and blend between them. Very much like a wave table. And right now you can't import your own. Maybe at some future time we'll get that. We also have detune, which just tunes the knob. Or it tunes the sound. It's kind of interesting. It's called detuned. If I don't know if I'm allowed to make recommendations. Who's going to stop me? I would rename this shift or tune. Detune makes it sound like it's a unison effect. At least on every synth I've ever seen. Detune indicates it's different voices of the same note. And then they use like tuning or shift or something to indicate that this has nothing to do with the chorus or unison. We also have the octave shifting, panning, gain, and the FM stuff we already sort of explored a little bit. But you can set up a depth and a ratio and with the sine wave, and you're allowed to start doing some FM really quickly. So you get two of these. You get a wonderful modulation ability. Let's go ahead, let's just drag and drop. Let's modulate the detune because this is going to be really audible. So pretty standard envelope, sort of what you would expect. Same thing goes for the LFOs. You get your frequency, which is how fast, and depth, which is how much. And you can choose different waveforms. You also have, so right now I'm on Hertz mode, but I could also go to sync, which will put it to some subdivision of the beat. Very cool. And you also have note retrigger, which is when you hit a note, the LFO will re-trigger, so everything's always in sync. Notes always start the same way. But if we do free, it'll start, this is confusing with a slow attack. Notes will start in different places, but it won't reset the modulation, so you'll get different attacks and different modulations. So this is really notes useful if you want to sync things up. Now, after LFO envelope, XY capture, this is another one that's like really interesting. So we have this XY grid we can move around and have it control things on X and on Y. So for example, let's grab the panning and we will just have this be modulated. And this is on the X, and let's grab the, I don't know, blend, and we'll have that be controlled by Y. That's going to make me sick. So let's go to capture, and now it's recording. If we move this around, woo, it remembers that and moves it around. And we could change the speed. So obviously that wasn't the speed I did it at. We can slow it down. Or we could go normal, and of course we could always go faster. In playback mode, you've got the ability to just manually do this yourself, so you can like scroll through the animation. So if you wanted to make just like an automation clip with a line, it'll go through your cycle for however long that line is, so you can like customize it that way if auto isn't doing it for you. You also have the ability to do your thing in reverse, or to have it go through in both directions, go through once and then go backwards only, and then this is only forward. So all pretty straightforward stuff. Let's slow it down, and let me just show you. It'll go backwards. There it goes. Boom, backwards. How amazing. So this is the XY thing, really pretty cool. You can really quick come in here, sort of fiddle with it, and you'll get some really unique automation that would be difficult to do with just like an envelope or an LFO. So this is a really great addition, and the audio input is another really great one. You've got a mod wheel too. So the way the mod wheel works is we could just change the concavity, and that'll just change the mapping. And so when we use the mod wheel, it'll alter accordingly. And you can actually see the output of the mod wheel. So there you go. That's pretty much it. To get rid of them, I typically like to use the X's in here. I think that's the most straightforward. And you get 4 of these things. So 1, 2, 3, 4 opens up a lot of doors. And you've also got a tweak it thing. So let's say that you've got some of the patch right where you want it, but there are a couple variables that you're like, I don't know. Well, you could grab them and put them in the tweak it. You see yellow bars appear on them, and you're allowed to sort of, move them around, vary them up. And we could do this for all kinds of stuff. We could grab the frequency of this guy, put it in there. We could grab him. I tried to do that backwards and set that up, and then we could, tweak it up, man. Then you're allowed to do like how much it occurs, and then the depths, just like all the others. So some very, very useful specific randomization, kind of however much randomization you want. It would be cool if there was like a button that just said randomize all of it except the pitch stuff, or randomize all of it but the LFO stuff, like categories. I think that would be really, really cool too, just as a creative starting point, but very nifty sort of stuff here. Now let's go ahead and jump over here. We've got a filter, standard filter, but we also have some drive, so we've got some nice distortion built into the filter, which is great. You're able to choose what kind of filter, so you've got 2 kinds, and you can move it around. All right, let's go through the effects real fast. Most of these are really standard, so I'm not even going to really talk about them because they're just kind of what you expect. So we've got an EQ, compressor, limiter, saturation, sucker for saturation. Pretty standard stuff there. Transient shaper, which is great. Attack, release. If you're doing drum synthesis, something really useful to have. We've got a chorus and a flanger on the same thing. Algorithmically, they're very similar, so they just gave them sort of the same name. We have a ring modulation, a convolution reverb. I thought this was cool. So you can actually import your own impulse responses. So this makes the reverb, in my opinion, just way more useful than your standard toss it in there algorithmic reverbs, because you can, if you've got nice impulse responses, you can use that. So very cool there. We've got a delay and then another filter. So if the first filter up there wasn't enough for you, and they are lacking, like for example, band pass and stuff like that. So you're able to construct those by just adding more filters in series, and you can have it. So for example, we'll make that one a low pass and this one a high pass, and we'll bring the cutoff down. And there we have ourselves a band pass filter. In fact, we grab this cutoff and sort of, this would be, the randomization will make it interesting because we'll only hear sound when they overlap a little bit, right? Or a lot of bit, doesn't matter. They have to overlap some. And that is, in its essence, pretty much everything about Concept. So that's Concept. Let's go ahead and take a quick look through some of the presets. Let's just go through some bases real quick. Nice. Sounds like it should be low. Quick note, if you want to set something to monophonic, you should come down here. For whatever reason, double click on this is type. I don't know why. If you hit one voice, it has to be monophonic. The only thing is, it does not, if you hold down a note, like it doesn't go back to that note, which is, it's not always the behavior in synths, but it won't do that, just so you know. So I have to re-trigger that note if you want to slide back to the note you were at. So you can't do like legato trills and stuff. And that is that. If you have any questions about this, let me know. What'd you think? What are you most excited about? What are your thoughts? Subscribe and have a blessed day.
I've seen that look in your eyes before, but I don't want to go through a closed door. So buckle up and settle in, cause I'm getting down to my 8-bit jam. When the swingers sing and the piano plays, I felt so good I could dance all day. But not with you, oh no, not yet, I'm not skipping.